Shen Wulong has always been the villain, a force in the story that can dictate what can and cannot happen in the story itself. And this has been happening from the very beginning. If we think of Shen Wulong's character and his influence, everything in the story, and I mean everything, connects to him. He is the ultimate reason behind the Nico style itself. He is the reason for Oma and Ryuki. He is the reason for Narashima Koga and has also influenced the Kengan Association before they truly even knew his name. It is no exaggeration to say that Shen Wulong isn't playing God. He is God. If you think this is an exaggeration, I would like to pull you back to Kengan Ashra, where Shen Wulong actually meets Yamashita. Now, you might be a bit confused that I said Shen Wulong met Yamashita in Kengan Ashra when it was Oma, but Oma is Shen Wulong. In a sense, he is his direct clone and thus an inheritor of his character as well as foreshadowing for his character. And one of the opening sections of Kengan Ashra is Oma essentially manipulating the story in order for him to get stronger and try to get his quote-unquote revenge. He meets Yamashita and eventually pushes Yamashita to become the man that he needs in order for him to actually enter the Kengan Annihilation Tournament. The way in which the Kengan Ashra story almost moves to the rhythm of Togita Oma is something you probably won't pay attention to until you reread the whole Kengan Ashra manga and realize just how many coincidences there are in this story. But it doesn't even stop there. Ryuki is also similar to how he almost invades the story of Narashima Koga, a character who was already influenced by Togita Oma, another Shen Wulong. He comes in and manages to get a spot in the Kengan vs Purgatory tournament with much less effort than Koga. However, things get a little bit worse for Koga as not only does he get injured before the tournament can start, but another Shen Wulong comes into the story in the form of Togita Oma again, someone who a lot of the fan base thought was essentially dead. He comes back and takes the spot of Narashima Koga. What I'm trying to point out here is that even in his incarnations or clones, they have a similar power that he does, to where the verse really bends around them and their decisions, even if they are almost unintentional. Think of Setsuna's relationship to Oma, Ryuki's relationship with Akoya, and Shen Wulong's relationship with the Worm and the Westwood faction. Effects that they probably did not intend but have anyways. And one of our recent examples is the current state of the story right now. See, we're not supposed to be here in this point of the story. The Kengan Association and the Purgatory Association of sorts are planning the Champions Tournament. That's what's supposed to be happening now. That's what was happening. However, Shen Wulong manages to interrupt that entire process and have everyone else in the story focused on him because he wants to take Oma and Ryuki right now. And we've seen people try to do this with the Kengan Association, where they try to take over and stop the flow of events. Old Man Hayami comes to mind specifically here. But in Kengan Ashra, he completely fails at this. But here we see Shen Wulong is successful. Anything pertaining to the Champions Tournament has now been put on the back burner because they have to fight him first. Because he decided that he was going to make his move now. He doesn't wait for the story and events to happen. He works outside of those things. And even now with the latest chapter called Forget It, chapter 257, you even have him saying that he will forget the entire plan plan that he had spent years, like around 30 years or so, actually even longer than that, about 100 years on this plan to make clones so that he could separate himself. And every other character has sort of followed the flow of this wave that Shen Wulong has started, and now he's like, oh wait, never mind. And guess what? The cyberbrain plot goes nowhere potentially. Lohan's plan is practically useless at that point, and the worm have been doing this for nothing. And to me, it's clear that Shen Wulong has incredible power to control the narrative itself, almost as if he is beyond what is currently happening. If anything, this sort of reminds me of Nietzsche's Übermensch, or Overman, I think, is how you translate it, where the masses, at least in Nietzsche's interpretation, follow religion and without it, they don't know how to navigate, whereas the Overman can sort of walk his own paths and isn't limited by things like morality or even the religious force itself. And in the story, it could probably be like having certain limits of what Shen can and cannot do. But here's the thing with Shen. He doesn't have morality or the things that he can and cannot do. The story will just accommodate whatever he actually plans on doing. And this is actually what the worm is afraid of, or at least trying to prevent. Because Yan said it best, the only thing between the world and Shen Wulong is the worm. The worm are trying to contain Shen Wulong, to limit what he can do to a certain extent, because without them, he can do straight up anything. It isn't that Shen Wulong is evil, it's that he can be evil. There's nothing stopping him from being evil. Or rather, the only thing that could stop him is power. But that just so happens to be an area in which he is unmatched, with no equal.